Welcome to InfoComm 2022. This is Rich Fregosa for AVNetwork.com. We're here in Las Vegas, Nevada, and I am at the Matrox booth. I'm here with Ron Berty, who is the Business Development Manager.
Yes,
right?
I am,
Ron,
absolutely.
Ron, it's great to see you.
Yeah.
So, there's some pretty interesting stuff that's actually behind me, and so I wanted to take a moment and find out, let's talk about why we're seeing 3 displays behind us and your product.
Sure. Well, we'll start with the product. It's called ConvertIP. It is a transmitter receiver, so all of the hardware can do transmission or receiving. You just set it through the software, and what we transmit and receive is AV over IP. And we can do it either fully uncompressed, so for 4K that's 16 gigabits a second, or we can support also JPEG XS as a codec and transmit using AV over IP again on 2110 for all of the transmission, and we also support Calibri. So what we're seeing here is 5 devices of 6. We also, there are HDMI, SDI support, as well as HD-based-T support. As I said, they're all transmitters or receivers. They have redundancy on the network. They support PoE. We have zero latency pass-through on the HDMI versions. And then what we're actually showing in the demo here at the show is 3 screens. The one on the far left, just behind you, is uncompressed. We have the source here, and we have the compressed version here. These 2 are running off the network. This comes directly from the PC. And what's interesting is the quality. So the quality is lossless, absolute lossless for uncompressed for both motion video and desktop content, which is very hard to reproduce because of its high frequency. You could compare it to the source. And then here we have uncompressed, visually lossless, even at, in this case, 800 megabits a second for 4K 60, 444 visually lossless content. You can also stop the video and compare the frame rate, and you'll see 0 latency there. Source, of course, is 0 latency, and here less than a frame of latency.
So we're going to make generous use of the pause button, right, and just
positively.
See it
you can look at us
through.
and the screens. So that's what we're showing here at the show today.
Well, fantastic. You know, we were talking a little bit earlier, and one of the things that you mentioned was there's always the debate between proprietary and open standard.
Sure.
That's a pretty big talking point with you.
It really is. We've built this on top of IPMX, and we've built it on IPMX is a proposed standard for the Pro AV industry that's built on existing standards that come from the broadcast industry, which is SMPTE ST2110 in terms of transmission of the content, and NMOS, which is the discovery and routing mechanisms for making all the signals work together and routing those signals to the right places that you want them to go. So we've built them that way, and we continue doing so with JPEG XS and uncompressed. And IPMX continues to build that out on their side with AIMS so that it fits a Pro AV environment. And the idea is that you get different products from different manufacturers to work together. Because right now, that's very difficult to do. You can choose a manufacturer's product, but if you want to use somebody else's because there's a certain feature set for that product that works better than the other manufacturers, well, you can use them, but they're totally separate in terms of their control. So with the standards, it brings you that interoperability and single element of control. So it's a real benefit for the customer.
Well, that's exactly, you know, that's absolutely the word, the interoperability at that point.
It really is. That's the difference, proprietary and standardized.
What's the response that you've been seeing in terms of, you know, deciding to move to an open standard at that point?
It's tremendous. It's been it's probably the biggest momentum I've seen, and I've been with Matrox for 28 years. And it is a tremendous amount of momentum at this point. We just had Barco sign up, or they had Barco sign up to the IPMX group that's managing these standards. And there's about 70 companies that are on it now, and it continues to grow. So there's a ton of momentum on that side. There's a lot of interest, and there's obviously a lot of benefit for having, you know, multiple manufacturers with all of their great stuff, you know, and their individual functionality that's best of breed, and bringing that all together for applying to applications where each sub-application gets the perfect AV over IP that you want to take advantage of, but all under a single roof of software.
Well, and that's the big thing. You were just talking about applications. Obviously, you know, there are the best thing about standards is there's so many to choose from, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
One of the things though that really does come to mind is for a dealer, for an integrator, somebody who's looking at using their product, use cases, because sometimes it's great to think about the technology, but the question is, how do I apply the technology?
It's a great point. I mean, I did a speaking engagement with Avixa yesterday, and I had 3 different use cases I mentioned, but the one that stands to very common is medical. So you're doing laparoscopic surgery. Well, you want something that's zero latency and zero loss because you're operating live. So usually that's a standard cable, but with this type of technology, you can actually use it over AV over IP because it's completely lossless and zero latency. So while you might not do that in an operating room, you might be consulting with someone else. Maybe a third-year resident needs to consult because he's seeing something that he doesn't typically see, and wants to consult with the 20-year veteran head of the department. And he can do that because you can transmit that to him in a different operating room or maybe somewhere else in the hospital. You might want to do it maybe through the hospital, maybe not uncompressed, maybe you use a compression version, but they can consult. So, being able to do this from a single piece of software, taking advantage of, like I said, different people's manufacturers' products, all under the same software control mechanism because of the standards is a tremendous benefit. And now you're not making compromises for your application of AV over IP. You're taking advantage of best of breed from all different manufacturers. So we are seeing a tremendous amount of momentum on that.
Well, it sounds like you've got a lot of great applications coming up for your dealers with that. If they want to find out more about Matrox, how can they find you?
You can certainly contact us on the web, of course, so matrox.com, and for the ConvertIP products, you can simply look under the product section and look for ConvertIP.
Fantastic. Well, for more about Matrox, you can find them on their website. For more about AVNetwork and their coverage here of InfoComm, as well as their site itself, you can find them on avnetwork.com. This is Rich Fregosa for avnetwork.com.